everybody, and welcome to the Social Success Factor, where we take a critical view and examine how social media is impacting today's world of sales. And today I'm really happy that a gentleman by the name of Marcus Garcia is able to join me. Hey Marcus, how are you today?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. Thank you for being here. Marcus is a seasoned sales professional from a company called InContact, which is one of the premier cloud-based contact management suites out there on the market. I hope I said that correct, right?
Contact center company. Yep, we provide contact center
company. Perfect. So Marcus, you and I connected a little while ago over LinkedIn because I had found out that you are having some major success with social selling. So, you know, before we get into that, take some time and explain to the audience who you are and your professional journey and what's brought you up to this stage in your career.
Sure. So I am what we call a district sales manager here at InContact. So I'm a sales guy. I cover a territory. I've been with InContact now for coming on a year.
Okay.
I started my career back in the early 90s with Siemens. Left Siemens after a number of years, went on to Avaya, did a couple startup things in between, and then now found a pretty good spot here with InContact. So my responsibility is evangelizing and selling the InContact suite of software products to anybody that I can in Southern California and Nevada.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've had quite a bit of path before you've landed at InContact. And I'm going to apologize to the audience here because there is a little bit of latency and the picture is freezing, but hey, that's the beauty of live chat, right? You never know what's going to happen. Now, Marcus, walk me through, how did you, from a sales guy to a sales guy, how did you prospect? In the past, what was prospecting about?
So I've kind of run the gamut of prospecting. So I have done everything from actually somebody handing a phone book to me and starting to call people just literally blind and cold, to knocking on doors, just dropping into companies and trying to talk my way through the receptionist to talk to somebody who might matter. Right. So I've kind of done it all.
And today you're doing this thing called social selling. You know, none of us even knew what the heck social selling was. We found out 2 years ago that the term was just coined. So explain to me, in your definition, what's social selling according to Marcus Garcia?
So it's interesting to me because the difference between what I do now and what I used to do is basically this. I used to spend a lot of time cold calling, right? Trying to figure out if that company over there might be able to benefit from whatever it is that I'm doing, and then just calling in and trying to talk to the right person. Got to ask a bunch of people who the right person actually is. They may or may not be interested in what it is that I'm selling. It's a lot of wasted time. Today, the way that I do it is I use things like LinkedIn, where people are self-identifying as being in a particular role that is relevant to me, at a particular company that's relevant to me. And then they're doing things like joining these groups and participating in these conversations, and they're further identifying themselves as people who are relevant to me from a sales perspective. They're people that I can actually help. And then with all that information that's now available, I'm able to actually reach out to them in a vastly more intelligent way, in a much more streamlined fashion, and without having to, sort of kiss so many frogs.
Right.
I'm having much, much higher success rates in reaching people and actually having meaningful conversations right out the gate, as opposed to what I used to do, which is a lot of banging my head against the wall.
Got it. You used a word there which I thought was really key: self-identified. And I think this is the reason that social really makes sense, right? Because it's all user-generated content. People are telling you exactly what they're doing, and it's up to you just to go and see it. And there's different ways of finding the information, I'm sure, but so you're basically just having success listening to people and keeping your eyes and ears open. You're doing what a sales guy is supposed to do.
Exactly. So I'm a lot more productive than I used to be. my sort of hit rate, if you will.
Yeah.
So when I actually sit down and decide, okay, it's time to, I'm not working on deals right now. I'm adding things to the funnel. I need to build a pipeline.
Right.
That time, whereas it used to be, you know, 1 out of every 100 people or you know, outreaches would turn into something that is possibly able to get worked on that I can add into a funnel. Today, it's 2 or 3 out of every 10.
Wow, that's a huge improvement.
It's gigantic, and even the ones that don't really pan out, I know are the right targets, and it wasn't just a, we're not interested, don't talk to me. It's a, you know, we got the timing wrong. You know, there's something about it that doesn't make it right for right now, but they're viable targets for down the road. So it's still a funnel. It might not be immediate, but in terms of immediate need, where I can actually go and start a sales engagement, it's 20 or 30% that
Wow.
that I'm seeing. Yeah.
Congrats, that's fantastic. That says
Thank
a lot
you.
about how social is working for you. Now,
hmm
the other 70-80% of the people that are not viable right now, what are you doing with them? Are you just lead nurturing them throughout the process?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned along the way, so with LinkedIn specifically, so I do probably 98% of my stuff in LinkedIn.
Okay.
I use some other things to help support those efforts, but LinkedIn is really the big tool that I use. When I first started using LinkedIn, I think I did what most people did and what I think a lot of people still do, which is I just kind of, I didn't really know what to do with it. So I just put all my info on it. It was basically like an online resume.
Right.
That didn't really do anything for me except make me searchable by recruiters, right? Which wasn't really what I was looking to do. So it wasn't actually until I got to In Contact where some of our marketing guys pulled me aside and said, hey, you need to redo this, right? This shouldn't be an online resume. This should really be an advertisement of sorts of what it is that you do to help businesses with whatever your function is at this company. So you need to revamp this to let everybody know that you can help them with X, Y, and Z, and that you're a subject matter expert in these things, and here's how you're going to do that. So they really kind of put me on the right track to making that happen. Now, I get pinged pretty regularly by people that I haven't actually reached out to who are asking me for insight. They're asking to connect to me. They're asking me to join their groups and those types of things. So it's made a big difference.
That's fantastic. Let's talk about what kind of difference it's made. Give me, without getting into the details, because I don't want to talk about anybody's pipeline with exact names or numbers, but
Sure.
give us an idea of what, you shared one stat with the audience, which is your hit rate is now 20 to 30%, which is just stupendously high. What does that mean in terms of how does that translate into your pipe, number
Sure.
one? And then the second part of that, and what matters the most, what does that mean in terms of net new business to you, Marcus?
So I would say that a good 25% right now of my existing pipeline is directly a result of this social selling activity that I'm doing.
Okay.
And I would say that probably, and it's probably about the same in terms of the actual revenue that is either closed or will be closing, in the next quarter or two. So it's made a giant difference. And it's frankly way easier than
Yeah, I
things
can
I was
imagine.
doing.
Yeah, it's better than picking up the phone call and saying to somebody, "Hey, I'm going to be in the area tomorrow for 20 minutes. Let's meet up for a coffee." And there's 10 other competitors making the same call behind you, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's really good. So you've been in contact for about a year, you've said.
Coming up on a year.
Coming
Correct.
up on a year, and I'll wish you congratulations when LinkedIn reminds me.
There you go. And that's another thing it does. Another reason to reach out to people. Hey, congratulations on the new gig.
Exactly, exactly. But it's really remarkable to me, and I hope for the audience as well, that a quarter of your entire pipeline and a quarter, potentially more even, than a quarter of your business, frankly, is coming from social media. Would you have ever imagined that 5 years ago that this could have ever been the case?
No, as a matter of fact, I used to be the guy that told people who were on LinkedIn, and I was on it, but I had the free version, right? I didn't pay for any of the extra stuff.
Right.
I was the guy who was telling everybody that paying for any of that stuff is just a waste of time. So no, I definitely wouldn't have believed that. It actually took somebody to sit me down and say, look, let me walk you through what you need to do. Do these things and then watch what happens.
Yeah.
So what you're doing, I think, is going to help a lot of people, because if somebody hadn't grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and said, hey, do this, I would probably still be doing some variation of what I was doing before.
I want to talk to you a little, thank you for that. And I want to talk to you a little bit about why are salespeople so reluctant on trying social selling? What's your take on it, Marcus?
I think a lot of folks get comfortable with what they're comfortable with. All right, change is scary for a lot of folks. Salespeople by nature are very, shall we call it, self-confident. Some of perhaps too much so in some cases. They believe in what they've done. They've been successful up to this point. I kind of know it all. I don't really need to do anything different. I think that's part of it. I'm surprised at how, depending on your industry, some folks just aren't particularly technical, and so this seems maybe a little bit, I don't really know what to do, therefore I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And I think part of it is they don't really know where to go to kind of figure it out. They go online to LinkedIn and look at other people's profiles, and most profiles are just somebody's resume, so it doesn't really teach them to do anything other than put their resume online, and they may not be looking to do that, so they just don't do anything. I can't really, I can't get in their heads, but I can't imagine that it's anything other than those things. Because once somebody actually starts doing this, I can't see how you go back to some other way.
Yeah, I could see that, especially because everything's just done right from your seat, right? You don't have to get up and walk your way past the receptionist, as you said. There's no more aggressive selling required.
No, and everything. I'm just way more productive. I can't emphasize enough how much more productive I am, because my first conversations are quality conversations. They're not trying to figure out if you're the right guy or you have any interest in this, or there's a need in your organization for this, because the information's there. I wouldn't have reached out to you if I didn't already know that.
Yeah. Very well said.
And that doesn't even get into the whole, like, how now do I leverage my relationship with you to go build a relationship with that person over there, right? It just builds over time that way.
Yeah, it sounds really, really good what you're doing. In terms of, talk to me about sales management, and I want to be very careful about what we say here, but ultimately, what is your take on why sales managers, and I'm talking more about directors, VPs, people that call the shots. What's the hesitation, Marcus? Why are we so slow to adopt? Now, I have a theory. It's because they're finding it hard to say, how the heck do we measure all this stuff? But the measurements, if I listen to your story, the measurements are clearly like, the proof is in the pudding, as they say.
Yeah, it's not that difficult to figure out a mechanism to measure what you're doing. As an individual, as an organization, InContact has actually added, so we use Salesforce, to manage, pipelines and funnels in our sales process. And we, like most companies who use Salesforce or any other CRM application, will try to, identify where leads come from, so that, marketing can figure out where to spend their money, basic stuff. We've gone so far as to add social to that list of things where we are getting our leads from, so that we can do an even better job of managing and understanding what the results are for us. We've embraced it wholeheartedly, but we're a technology company. We're in the cloud, so we're a little bit, more right. Yeah. I think if you look at some of the older school type sales industries, you'll find less adoption, because they don't really know how to manage that, let alone anything else. And the other thing, honestly, from a management perspective, I think that there's some concern in really pushing it, because LinkedIn is a haven for recruiters. So, if you're worried about attrition, you might not want your folks, putting themselves out there quite so much for fear that they'll go. But I think that's backwards thinking.
Yeah, it is. And just, I don't want to talk about that too much, but it's interesting. I read an article recently that talked about the fact that the average person today is in their job for about 2 to 4 years. which means that if you're out of college at the age of 22, roughly, give or take, up until the age of 65, and who knows if that's going to be the retirement age in the future, but you know, you've got 40 years of working, and you're going to have about 15 to 20 different jobs, possibly 3-4 careers in that. So you really can't be afraid, right? You can't keep a lid on this stuff. It's going to explode, as what you're saying.
Yeah, and frankly, when you get somebody, you want them to be as productive as possible. So I would think that this would be something that people are very aggressively pushing. I think a lot of it is just they don't understand it. When you look at who's in senior management today, they're going to be a bit older. They won't have grown up on the computer the way that folks coming up now are. Facebook, LinkedIn, all this social media stuff is not what they came up on. They came up on, you know, the 3 martini lunch and the handshake and, you know, the cold calling and the phone book and, you know, all that stuff. So
they're not that
I think
old.
there's just some.
They're not that old. Come on.
Maybe not quite that old. And listen, I got nothing against the 3 martini lunch.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We should do that right after this call.
Exactly.
So Marcus, listen, I don't want to take too much of your time. What are some last parting words that you can leave behind for salespeople all over the world, right, who are considering, who are kind of sitting on the fence, who don't even know about this, frankly? What words of wisdom, of motivation can you provide for them?
Well, I would say simply that if what you want is to shift your time spent, right? Salespeople, at least I'll just speak for myself. I'm much happier, much more productive, much more successful, and make much more money when my time is spent engaged with a qualified customer versus trying to find and sift through a pile of what might be qualified customers. So to the extent that you want to spend your time doing the productive stuff and actually have meaningful conversations about making differences in these businesses with whatever solution it is that you're selling, I would say you will see your time shifting in that direction to the extent that you start embracing these kinds of tools. I can't emphasize enough the relief that you get from, you know, cold calling time when you move to a social selling model. It's easier. The conversations are warmer. The folks on the receiving end are more appreciative of what you're saying because it's actually meaningful. You're not just throwing everything on the wall hoping they're interested in something you say. You can target and tailor your messages. It just makes it for a much, much better experience. So if you want to make more money and you want to be more productive with your time and you don't want to have so much, you know, banging your head against the wall prospecting time, you got to figure it out. Whatever it means for your business, you got to figure it out.
That's awesome. Thanks, Marcus. I really appreciate your time. And I'm sure the audience will find a lot of nice vignettes and gems and nuggets in what you've said. And I hope you can join us on a future series of The Social Success Factor.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
You bet. Take care.
Take care.